My name is Michael Thompson, and for 7 years I thought I had built the perfect life. Jessica and I met in college, fell in love over late-night study sessions and cheap coffee. We got married in a small ceremony in her parents' backyard in Toronto, surrounded by friends who believed we were soulmates. I remember thinking that day that I was the luckiest man alive. Jessica was everything I ever wanted: beautiful, intelligent, ambitious. She worked as a marketing coordinator for a tech startup, while I ran a small accounting firm with my business partner, Stephen Palmer. We had dreams of buying a house in the suburbs, maybe having kids in a few years. Life felt like it was finally falling into place. But looking back now, I realize I was living in a complete fantasy. It all started to unravel on a Tuesday morning in October. I remember the date exactly, October 15th. The leaves were turning golden outside our apartment window, and I had woken up early to prepare for a big client presentation. I reached over to kiss Jessica goodbye, but her side of the bed was cold and empty. This wasn't unusual. She had been going to the gym early most mornings for the past 8 months, ever since she hired Brandon as her personal trainer. I remember thinking how proud I was of her dedication to fitness. Must be having an intense workout session, I muttered to myself, stumbling toward the kitchen to make coffee. That's when I saw it. A white envelope propped against the coffee maker, my name written in Jessica's careful handwriting. My stomach immediately dropped. In 7 years of marriage, Jessica had never left me a note like this. She was the type to text constantly throughout the day, sending me photos of her lunch or funny memes she found online. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and read, "Michael, I'm sorry it has to end this way, but I can't keep living a lie anymore. I've fallen deeply in love with Brandon, and we've decided to start a new life together. By the time you read this, we'll already be on our way to somewhere you'll never find us. I know this will hurt you, and I'm sorry for that. But I can't pretend to love you anymore when my heart belongs to someone else. Please don't try to contact me or find us. It will only make this harder for both of us. Take care of yourself. Michael, you deserve someone who can love you the way you deserve to be loved. Jessica." I read the note 3 times before the words actually sank in. My legs gave out, and I collapsed into one of our kitchen chairs, the same chairs we had picked out together at IKEA 2 years ago, laughing about the impossible-to-follow instructions. Brandon Martinez, 28 years old, originally from Australia, with the kind of physique that made me feel inadequate every time Jessica showed me photos from her training sessions. She would always say things like, "Look how strong I'm getting," or "Brandon says I have natural athletic ability." I had encouraged her enthusiasm, happy that she was taking care of her health. How could I have been so blind? My hands were shaking as I grabbed my laptop and logged into our joint checking account. The page loaded slowly, and for a moment I held on to hope that maybe this was all just a cruel joke, that our savings would still be there, that Jessica would walk through the door laughing about her elaborate prank. But when the account balance appeared on the screen, my world completely shattered. Balance, $0. Available credit, $0. Recent transactions, transfer, $67,847.32. October 14th, 4:23 p.m. International wire transfer, Cayman Islands National Bank. $67,847.32. Every penny we had saved over 7 years of marriage. The money from selling my grandmother's engagement ring. The tax refunds we had carefully deposited each year. The overtime pay I had earned working weekends. The small inheritance Jessica received when her uncle died. Our entire future gone in a single electronic transaction. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I called the bank, hoping against hope that there had been some kind of mistake. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. How can I help you today?" The customer service representative sounded cheerful, completely unaware that she was about to confirm my worst nightmare. "I need to inquire about a large transfer from my account yesterday. I think there might have been some kind of error." "Let me look that up for you, sir. I see the transaction you're referring to. A wire transfer of $67,847.32 to Cayman Islands National Bank, executed yesterday at 4:23 p.m. The authorization was completed using your digital banking token." "That's impossible. I shouted into the phone. I was in meetings all afternoon yesterday, and I don't even know what a digital banking token is. Sir, according to our records, the digital token was set up on September 22nd by Jessica Thompson, who is listed as a joint account holder. She would have needed to provide proper identification and answer security questions to establish the token. September 22nd. 3 weeks ago, while I was working late, believing my wife was at home watching Netflix, she was actually at the bank setting up the means to steal our entire life savings. Sir, are you still there? Yes, I'm here. Is there any way to reverse this transaction? Unfortunately, international wire transfers to offshore accounts are typically irreversible, especially when they were authorized by a joint account holder. You would need to contact the receiving bank directly, but I should warn you that they're not obligated to cooperate with retrieval requests. I hung up the phone and immediately tried calling Jessica. Straight to voicemail. I tried texting her. The messages showed as delivered, but never read. I tried calling Brandon's gym. Fitness Revolution. This is Amanda speaking. How can I help you? Hi. I'm looking for Brandon Martinez. Is he available for a training session today? Oh, I'm sorry, but Brandon is no longer with us. He submitted his resignation last week and said he was moving out of the country. Can I interest you in sessions with one of our other trainers? Out of the country. They had planned this down to the last detail. The next 3 days passed in a blur of rage, disbelief, and desperate phone calls. I contacted the police, but they informed me that since Jessica was a joint account holder, no crime had technically been committed. I called a lawyer who told me that international asset recovery would cost more money than I had left and had very little chance of success. I called Jessica's parents, her sister, her best friend from college. Nobody had heard from her. Either they were lying or Jessica had cut ties with everyone from her old life. I stopped eating. I stopped showering. I stopped going to work. I just sat in our apartment, surrounded by reminders of our life together, trying to understand how everything I thought I knew had been a lie. On the 4th day, while I was mechanically packing Jessica's clothes into boxes for donation, I found something that would change everything. Jessica had always been meticulous about organization. Her dresser drawers were perfectly arranged, with dividers for different types of clothing. But as I was emptying the bottom drawer, my fingers brushed against something hard taped to the back panel. It was a small USB drive, carefully concealed behind a framed photo of our wedding day. What the hell? I whispered to myself. I had never seen this USB drive before. Jessica and I shared all our digital files on a cloud storage account. Why would she hide a USB drive in such a strange place? With trembling hands, I inserted it into my laptop. There was a single file on the drive, insurance_policy_final.pdf. The file opened to reveal a life insurance policy that I had never seen before. But what made my blood turn to ice wasn't just the existence of the policy, it was the details. Insured, Michael James Thompson. Policy amount, $800,000. Beneficiary, Jessica Marie Thompson, spouse. Policy effective date, September 30th. Double indemnity clause. In the event of accidental death, benefit amount doubles to $1,600,000. This policy had been taken out just 2 weeks ago. I had never signed any paperwork, never undergone a medical exam, never spoken to any insurance agent. Yet somehow, there was an official policy on my life, with my supposed signature on every page. But the most terrifying part was what I found on the last pages of the document. Handwritten notes in Jessica's precise handwriting. Timeline for M's accident. October 20th. M drives to client meeting in Muskoka, takes Highway 60 mountain roads. Brandon positions himself at sharp turn mile, marker 47. Cut brake lines while M is in meeting, 1 to 2 hours available window. Accident must look natural, single vehicle, no witnesses. Call 911 exactly 15 minutes after estimated crash time. Grief period, 3 to 4 weeks minimum before collecting insurance. Transfer funds to Cayman account by November 30th. B, and I relocate to Costa Rica by December 15th. I felt like I was going to vomit. They weren't just planning to steal my money and disappear. They were planning to murder me. But then I noticed something even more chilling. Attached to the last page was a bright yellow sticky note that definitely hadn't been there when I first found the USB drive. The ink looked fresh, as if it had been written recently. Michael, if you're reading this, it means you found our insurance policy. I always knew you were smarter than Brandon gave you credit for, but I'm afraid you've discovered our plan too late to stop it. While you've been sitting here reading this, Brandon has already started his drive back from Muskoka. He should arrive at the apartment in approximately 90 minutes to handle the complication of your early discovery. I do hope you'll try to run. It will make the chase so much more entertaining. Good luck, darling. You're going to need it. Gee, I looked at the timestamp on my computer. The note had been saved to the USB drive at 6:47 p.m. It was now 8:23 p.m. Jessica had been watching me. Somehow, she knew I had found the drive, and Brandon was already on his way back to kill me. My mind raced as I tried to process what was happening. How was Jessica monitoring me? Had she installed cameras in our apartment, tracking software on my computer? Or was she simply gambling that I would eventually find the USB drive and read it around this time? Then I realized the truly diabolical nature of their plan. They wanted me to know this wasn't just about killing me for insurance money. They wanted me to suffer first. They wanted me to experience the full terror of knowing I was about to die, of understanding that my entire marriage had been a lie, of realizing that the woman I loved had been planning my murder. But they had made one crucial mistake. They assumed I would panic, try to run, maybe call the police who wouldn't believe my story. They thought I was the same naive, trusting man who had missed all the signs of Jessica's deception. They were wrong. I called my friend Tony Ricci, a detective who had retired from the Toronto Police Service 2 years earlier. Tony and I had been friends since high school, and he was one of the few people I trusted completely. Tony, I need you to come over right now. And I need you to bring your service weapon and any surveillance equipment you might have access to. Michael, what's going on? You sound terrible. Tony, I know this is going to sound insane, but Jessica has been planning to murder me for insurance money, and her accomplice is on his way here right now to kill me. I have proof, and I need your help to catch them in the act. There was a long pause. Michael, when's the last time you slept? Or ate anything? Because this sounds like... Tony, I'm sending you a photo of the insurance policy and Jessica's handwritten murder plan right now. Look at your phone. Another pause, then, holy shit, Michael. This is real. Can you be here in 30 minutes? I'm already in my car. Tony arrived 28 minutes later, carrying a duffel bag that I assumed contained various pieces of equipment that I probably didn't want to know about. He took one look at me and immediately went into cop mode. Okay, Michael, here's what we're going to do. First, you gotta eat something and drink some water because you look like you're about to pass out. Second, I'm going to set up surveillance cameras in strategic locations around the apartment. Third, we're going to call my former partner, Detective Sarah Kim, and get some backup position outside. What if Brandon doesn't show up? What if this is all just psychological torture? Then we'll have wasted an evening. But if he does show up with the intention of killing you, we'll have everything we need to put him away for life. Tony worked quickly and efficiently, placing tiny wireless cameras in the living room, kitchen, and bedroom. He gave me a small recording device to keep in my pocket and positioned himself in the hall closet where he would have a clear view of the entire apartment. At 9:47 p.m., we heard the sound of someone picking the lock on my front door. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure Brandon would be able to hear it. Tony had coached me to act natural, to pretend I was asleep in the bedroom, to let Brandon incriminate himself on camera before we intervened. The door opened slowly, and Brandon Martinez stepped into my apartment wearing all black clothing, latex gloves, and carrying a leather briefcase that I was sure didn't contain fitness equipment. He moved like a professional, checking each room methodically before heading toward the bedroom where he thought I was sleeping. I was actually hiding in the bathroom with the door cracked open, watching through the gap. Brandon opened his briefcase on my bedroom dresser. Inside, I could see syringes, small bottles of clear liquid, plastic sheeting, duct tape, and a pistol with what looked like a silencer attached. He was planning to make my death look like a drug overdose. Brandon filled one of the syringes with liquid from one of the bottles, then approached the bed where he thought I was sleeping under the covers. I had arranged pillows to create the illusion of a body, hoping to buy us enough time to get everything on camera. Sweet dreams, Michael, Brandon whispered as he raised the syringe. Jessica sends her regards. That's when Tony burst out of the closet, his weapon drawn. Toronto police, drop the syringe and put your hands where I can see them. Brandon spun around, the syringe still in his hand. For a moment, I thought he might try to fight or run. But when he saw Tony's gun pointed at his chest, he slowly raised his hands. This isn't what it looks like, Brandon said, his Australian accent much thicker than I remembered. Really? I said, stepping out of the bathroom. Because it looks like you just tried to murder me with a lethal injection. Brandon's face went white when he realized I was alive and aware of everything. Tony kept his weapon trained on Brandon while I called Detective Kim, who arrived with backup within minutes. But as they were placing Brandon in handcuffs, he said something that changed everything. You idiots don't understand anything. I'm not working for Jessica. I'm working for someone else entirely. What are you talking about? I demanded. Jessica is just as much a victim here as you are. The person who hired me told me she was in on it, but I'm starting to think that was a lie too. Tony and Detective Kim exchanged glances. Who hired you? Kim asked. Some guy named Steven. Said Michael had discovered he was embezzling money from their business and was going to report him to the authorities. Offered me $200,000 to make Michael's death look accidental and pin it on Jessica. My blood turned to ice. Stephen Palmer, my business partner for 5 years. The man I trusted with my professional life, my financial future, everything. Stephen told you Jessica was involved? He said she was the perfect scapegoat. Said she'd already transferred money out of your account to make herself look guilty, and that after you were dead, the police would assume she killed you for the insurance money. He said it was foolproof. The pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. Stephen had been manipulating both Jessica and me, using our relationship against us to cover his own crimes. Detective Kim looked at me. Michael, we need to call Jessica. If she's innocent in this, she's in danger too. I dialed Jessica's number, expecting it to go straight to voicemail like it had for the past 4 days. But to my shock, she answered on the second ring. Michael? Oh my God, Michael, is that really you? Jessica, where are you? I'm in a hotel in Vancouver. Michael, something terrible has happened. Someone's been threatening me, telling me that if I don't disappear, they'll kill both of us. They said you were already dead, but they made it look like I killed you, and that I needed to run or I'd be next. Who threatened you, Jessica? Stephen Palmer. Your business partner, Stephen. The story that emerged over the next several hours was more complex and sinister than I could have imagined. Stephen had been embezzling money from our accounting firm for over 2 years, stealing from client accounts and covering his tracks by manipulating our books. When he realized I was getting close to discovering his crimes during our annual audit, he devised an elaborate plan to eliminate me and frame Jessica for my murder. First, he approached Jessica privately and told her that I was having an affair and planning to divorce her, taking all our assets with me. He showed her fabricated evidence, fake photos, edited emails, forged financial documents. He convinced her that I was planning to leave her destitute and that she needed to protect herself by moving our money to a secure offshore account. Jessica, believing she was protecting herself from my betrayal, transferred our savings to the Cayman Islands account that Stephen had set up. She thought she was being smart and proactive, not realizing she was being set up as the perfect murder suspect. Meanwhile, Stephen hired Brandon to kill me and make it look like Jessica had done it for the insurance money. The life insurance policy had been forged using digital copies of my signature that Stephen had access to through our business partnership. Stephen's plan was diabolical in its simplicity. I would die in what appeared to be a murder orchestrated by my wife for insurance money. Jessica would either be killed by Brandon to tie up loose ends, or she would spend the rest of her life on the run, unable to return home without being arrested for my murder. And Stephen would continue embezzling money from the business, now with no one around to discover his crimes. The USB drive that Jessica had hidden wasn't part of a plan to torture me. It was her desperate attempt to leave evidence that something was wrong. When Stephen told her that I was already dead and that she needed to run immediately, She quickly hid the drive, hoping that someone would eventually find it and realize she had been framed. The sticky note with the threatening message? Stephen had broken into our apartment while Jessica was packing and added it to the USB drive, hoping to drive me into making mistakes that would support his narrative about Jessica being a murderer. Jessica returned to Toronto on the first available flight, accompanied by Vancouver police who had been contacted by Detective Kim. When I saw her walking through the airport security gate, flanked by officers but not in handcuffs, I realized how much I had missed her and how close I had come to losing her forever. But our reunion wasn't the romantic reconciliation you might expect. We had both been traumatized by Stephen's manipulation, and trust doesn't rebuild overnight. "Michael," Jessica said as we sat in the police station waiting to give our statements, "I know you probably hate me right now. I know that from your perspective, it looked like I stole our money and ran away with another man. But I need you to understand that I thought you were betraying me first." "Jessica, why didn't you just talk to me? Why didn't you tell me what Stephen was saying?" "Because he showed me evidence, Michael. Photos of you with another woman. Bank statements showing money being moved to accounts I didn't recognize. Emails between you and a divorce lawyer. It all looked so real." I realized then how sophisticated Stephen's manipulation had been. He had exploited our individual insecurities and fears, turning us against each other so effectively that we had been ready to believe the worst about the person we loved most. The investigation into Stephen's crimes took several months. Forensic accountants discovered that he had stolen over $400,000 from our clients over a 2-year period. The forged insurance policy was just one piece of evidence in a larger pattern of identity theft and fraud. Brandon Martinez pleaded guilty to attempted murder and conspiracy charges in exchange for testifying against Stephen. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison and will be deported to Australia upon his release. Stephen Palmer was arrested at Pearson International Airport trying to board a flight to the Bahamas with 2 fake passports and over $300,000 in cash. He was convicted on multiple charges including attempted murder, fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. He received a 25-year sentence and will likely die in prison. The money Jessica had transferred to the Cayman Islands was eventually recovered and returned to our account, along with the funds Stephen had stolen from our clients. But the financial recovery was the easy part. Rebuilding our marriage was much more difficult. Jessica and I spent 6 months in intensive couples therapy, working through the trauma of Stephen's manipulation and the trust issues that his scheme had exposed in our relationship. We learned that even before Stephen's manipulation, we had been keeping secrets from each other, harboring fears and insecurities that we had never discussed. I had to confront the fact that I had been so focused on building our financial future that I had neglected Jessica's emotional needs. She had felt taken for granted and unappreciated, which made her vulnerable to Stephen's lies about my supposed betrayal. Jessica had to acknowledge that her response to believing I was betraying her, transferring our money, and planning to disappear, was not the action of someone committed to fighting for their marriage. It wasn't easy. There were nights when we both questioned whether we could overcome what had happened. There were therapy sessions where we screamed at each other, and others where we cried together over everything we had almost lost. But slowly we began to rebuild something stronger than what we had before. Today, 3 years later, Jessica and I have a marriage that is built on complete honesty and open communication. We have weekly check-ins where we discuss any concerns or fears before they can become bigger problems. We've learned to see manipulation tactics for what they are, and we've developed systems to verify information before acting on it. Jessica left her marketing job and opened a small bakery specializing in custom wedding cakes. She says that helping other couples celebrate their love helps her remember why our relationship is worth fighting for. I sold the accounting firm and now work as a forensic accountant, helping law enforcement agencies investigate financial crimes. My experience with Stephen's embezzlement scheme has made me an expert in identifying the warning signs of internal fraud. We never did buy that house in the suburbs. Instead, we bought a small cabin on a lake north of Toronto, where we spend our weekends hiking and canoeing and remembering how much we enjoy each other's company. The USB drive that started this whole nightmare sits in a safety deposit box now, along with copies of all the evidence that helped convict Stephen. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Jessica had never hidden that drive, if I had never found it. Would Stephen's plan have succeeded? Would I be dead and Jessica spending her life in prison for a crime she didn't commit? But mostly I try not to think about the what-ifs. Instead, I focus on the fact that we survived something that should have destroyed us, and we came out stronger on the other side. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't elaborate schemes or perfect justice. The best revenge is building a life so good that your enemy's attempts to destroy only make you appreciate what you have even more. And that's exactly what Jessica and I have done.